We have 5 new sponsors too that we'll be announcing. You'll get to meet at our event in Providence. But Avocados from Mexico just joined, the Lamb Company, Dessert Holdings, Ripple, and Unox. And you'll learn much more about them in the next coming weeks. Many of you, probably not many of you, I think everybody on here knows Jane Foreman. Jane's new title, since she's been promoted, I think 4 times, I think you were saying, in the last couple of years.
Just title changes.
Well, and responsibility too. It's like, well, let's throw some more on her. She's Senior Manager, Sales and Planning for Food Service. Shota Nakajima, which many of you have maybe seen on the Top Chef current season, which has been really fun to watch, by the way. But he has a restaurant in Seattle and does a lot of appearances around the country, both events where he's cooking and working with other chefs. But I think the most important thing that I read in your bio was the 5 years you spent in Japan. And that's something we'll definitely get into and talk a little bit more about here. And then we have Claire Conaghan, and she is with Datassential, and she's here to talk about Asian trends, but also she's going to talk a little bit about some other things that are going on with the trends in casual dining, I think is what you were saying, or comfort foods, I think is how you put it, right, Claire?
Yep. So we're going to talk about comfort food and Asian food and the intersection of it.
Yeah. So that's going to be really cool. So let's start out with Jane. Jane, you're on to give us a little bit about the history of Kikkoman, which is quite impressive.
So I'm going to go over a brief overview of Kikkoman's history and also how we ferment and brew our soy sauce. So as many of you may or may not know, soy sauce has been around for over 2,000 years. It was developed in China, but we like to say the Japanese refined soy sauce. So Kikkoman has actually been around since the 1600s, and if not the world's oldest food brands, we're one of the oldest food brands that's around. And today we are still run by descendants of the founding families. So we're actually in the 19th generation, primarily the Mogi family. Mogi, who's in his 80s, is 18th generation, and his son is also with Kikkoman and is 19th generation. So we set up our first office here in San Francisco, outside of Japan in 1957. And Mogi's goal for Kikkoman back then and still today was to incorporate our soy sauce into the daily lives of home consumers as well as restaurant operators. So with that, he decided that we had to build a plant in the US. So in 1973, Kikkoman was actually the first Japanese company to break ground in the US. And a lot of thought went into where we were going to build our plant. Good water is needed. And they wanted to also be close to the source of soybeans and wheat. So our primary plant was built in Walworth, Wisconsin. And still today, we're utilizing a centuries-old brewing process that we've modernized to create our soy sauce. And just a fun note, our soy sauce actually has over 300 elements that make up its unique flavor and aroma and all the umami that comes from our soy sauce. And it works great with both savory and sweet dishes even. So I'm just going to go quickly through the brewing process. So we start out heating soybeans at a high temperature, and then those are mixed with wheat that has also been heated and crushed. After that, we take what is called the Kikkoman aspergillus, which is basically a koji mold that we've used for centuries, literally. And that then creates a soy sauce koji that's formed after 3 days of fermenting. That is then mixed with a saltwater brine, and that creates basically a mash that we call moromi, and that ages in tanks for several months. It takes typically 6 to 9 months for that process and for the fermentation to happen. Once that is finished, the moromi is folded into 3 cloths and folded back in multiple layers and basically put into a gravity press. And it's pressed for about 10 hours. And these press machines are multiple stories high. And it's basically 2,000 tons is the weight that's in these machines. And when I was in Japan at our plant a couple of years ago, that's the equivalent of 66,000 school-age children, if you think of that just for perspective. Finally, when the raw soy sauce comes out of the pressing machine, it's then clarified for a couple of days. The clarified portion is extracted, and then it's heated to stop the formation of enzymes, and then sent to final QA process, and then finally bottled into what you know today as Kikkoman soy sauce. Aside from soy sauce, we do have a full line of Asian sauces as well as panko coatings, and we're continuing to launch new products to meet the growing needs of consumers. Just a quick note, our less sodium soy sauce is made first by brewing the soy sauce and then extracting the sodium out. So it's not diluted with water. It still has that same umami factor. I'm just going to touch on sustainability briefly because I know that's important to a lot of operators. We try to have a low carbon footprint, sourcing materials close to our production facility, and then we utilize or recycle as much of our waste as possible. For example, soy cake goes into feeding livestock, and the waste brine water is actually used in the Midwest to salt the roads during snow and ice in the winter. And it's actually supposedly better for your car and for the roads than salting it with rock salt. So for any of you who live in the Midwest, you may be driving over some Kikkoman brine. And then finally, I'm just going to touch on one quick tool that we launched as everybody's pivoting and changing the way they do business. This is available to all of you. It talks to our ready-to-use products and other tools that we have, and we can send that out afterwards. So that was all that I had.
That's great, Jane. Yeah, thank you. And before we get into, and Shota's next, so we're going to talk to him a little bit about, his career, which started young at 18, going to Japan and opening his first restaurant at 25. Pretty impressive, by the way.
There's no place Chef Shota Nakajima would rather be working than the line at his restaurant. But 2020 had other ideas.
2020 has been a roller coaster in so many ways. I closed one of my restaurants, Adana. I was running this as to-go and got in a car crash, some health incidents. You know, they say there's no bad time to open a bar, but I opened a bar 5 days before the mandatory shutdown, so I think I went on that one.
Is that sweat or water? A little bit of both.
But Shota's bad luck took a turn for the better when he got a call asking if he'd like to be a contestant on TV's hottest cooking competition show, Top Chef.
I got a call from Bravo asking if I was interested, and I was like, yeah, what could go wrong this year? I want to be top chef because there's a big part of me that carries Japan on my back, and I want to be a stronger and better mentor and a chef. The first reaction was just scared, being like, I don't know if I can do this. And then I got really excited that I want to do it because it's that scary.
When filming began last fall, Shota found himself thrown into the fire against some of the best chefs in the country.
I've probably learned more in that short time frame than I did in the last 2 years about cooking. Coolest part is that you get to see so many different people showcase what they've learned, different cuisine, different mentality and approach towards cooking.
I hope you're ready, because your time starts now.
You'll have to tune in to see how Chef Shota Nakajima does on Top Chef. But no matter what, 2021 is already cooking up to be a better year.
Shota, we're ready for you to talk to us a little bit about everything in your world. So a little bit about, I know some of the passion you have for soy sauce and many other sauces and innovation that you've been doing. But why don't we start out a little bit with, your success here recently, just doing takeout in your restaurant, because I think it's insane.
Yeah, so originally when I opened Taku, I opened in March 2020. Like I said, worst time winner. But when I originally opened, I was doing a concept called kushikatsu, which is kushi means skewer, katsu means breaded and fried. It's a street food from Osaka. They've had since the 1500s. And you choose per ingredient. You choose asparagus, you choose mushroom, and you get one skewer per order. And each skewer is like $2, $3, $4. But thinking about it, my inventory was pretty big. So after I closed up a little bit because I had some health issues going on, and car crash at the same time, just kind of a crazy year. But after coming back from, competing on Top Chef, which is still airing right now, tuning in on Thursdays, I was looking at my menu. I was like, okay, I want to make sure I'm not doing food waste because I just don't know how busy it's going to be. I don't know what the operations are going to look like. And I was trying to think about a simple concept to do. One day I was eating dinner at my mom's house and she made chicken karaage, which is Japanese fried chicken. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to build a model off of this. And I did. I cut my inventory by 90%. We reopened as a to-go restaurant about a month and a half ago. And we have been pushing about 400, 450 pounds of chicken thighs a day out of a tiny little 1,500 square foot space. Originally started with 5 or 6 full-time employees, and now we need 5 or 6 more because my number one rule is I want all hourlies to work 3 or 4 days a week. So that's
great. You talked a little bit about that too with your employees and what you want to do with them. Talk a little, because I think you're really onto something here post COVID and what you want to do with giving them more responsibility and making them a bigger part of the big picture.
Yeah, I think I think I just need to think about it differently because the big norm of our restaurant industry is, we have turnovers, we have this, and it's a normal thing, but I think we should change what's normal about it. Like I give profit share to my managers, this, that, and I tell them to come banter with me, come negotiate that, make it yours, turn it into your own thing, and let's work on this project together. So in a sense, I get to work on more different projects than just operating one restaurant. And it gives me the freedom and it gives them the creativity and freedom. And I think it turns into a plus way of operating.
That's great. And then how do you look at that from a management standpoint? I mean, do you have, are people on tiers within that? Or is it structured or unstructured? I guess that's a quick way for me to ask.
It's structured. Yeah, it's structured. Right now I have a culinary director, and then it's still a small team. So I have a culinary director. I have a general manager at Taku, which is my bar, but she's more operation for everything on top of running a restaurant. And then I have one corporate sous or whatever you want to call it, because I do a lot of events. So just kind of helping with that side of the business. I'm doing a lot of video shoots right now. So just I've been expanding in different ways as a restaurant. I think after 2020, making sure I have a contingency plan of somehow making sure I have jobs for my staff and not having to have to let everyone go. So I guess with that mentality, I've been studying a lot about like the Netflix company culture, freedom, liability, and, trying to push and do something a little different, something that's more everyone's project compared to, hey, I'm the chef owner. This is my way. You say, yeah, chef, when I do things, and let's try to operate that way. Compared to that, it's like, hey, let's all take part of it. Come on to like finish the project you're at, keep that portion of what you take, and come help me with this project, and I'll give you another portion, and let's just keep expanding this business and go on it together. And as of right now, I think it's helped a lot of people do more in my mind, because I tell my managers, like, if your project's done, you can work 3-4 days a week. I don't care if financials are meeting the criteria. I don't need your 5 days a week. But it ends up like they want to do more too. So, sometimes they'll take like 4 days, but then they'll come in and do a 6 or 7 day because they just want to bust out work, which is great.
I love it. I love your attitude on that. And it's, I'm sure that's going to be successful. On that front, let's just talk a little bit about, where your success and your talent has come from. Maybe start a little bit with what you learned in Japan, working there for so many years, and that experience. And then, take us through your unique way that you're using, especially soy sauce and some other fish sauce and other things that you talked about. So if you don't mind starting with that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I actually started working in restaurants originally when I was 15, 16, worked at 2 full-time jobs, 80 hours. When I was 18, I wanted to learn more about my culture, and just kind of live on my own a little bit. I was rebellious in that sense. So I moved to Japan with one goal of working in a Michelin star restaurant. I ended up working for that Michelin star restaurant for 5 years. It taught me, I think, modesty, work ethic, and the grind to be successful. And a lot about cooking, obviously. After I came back, my big goal was, I would say, hey, I cook Japanese food, and everyone says, oh, so you can do sushi. My big goal was conveying Japanese culture through food in a new way that just hasn't been introduced yet, because I still believe there's so many beautiful, different Japanese cooking things that are out there, that are delicious, that I think people should just try, because why not try yummy things? I opened my first restaurant called Naka as a kaiseki restaurant, where we were doing 10, 15 courses. The price point was pretty high. Management was very hard for me. I was 25. I made so many mistakes, still make a lot of mistakes. And I changed concepts into doing a rotating menu of 3-course, 5-course, 7-course after a year. After a year and a half, which worked out a lot better. We started making money about year 3.5 from the whole entire procedure, and I had it for 5 years. I guess that's kind of, and then I opened the bar in March 2020. So it's kind of my career, where my success comes from is all the failures and good friends that I have to support me.
What's so cool, though? I love it. What's so cool about what you're saying on failures, too, though, is that they weren't really failures. You adapted. You didn't go out of business. I mean, obviously, what happened in COVID to a lot of people. But you were able to adapt and be creative and find a way. I mean, that's really that's admirable, and that's that shows where you're going in the future, which is really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm very blessed with the people that I have around me. They just get it. I've always been lucky with hiring, I think, and have had long-term staff, and just like clicks. And I don't know, I'll sit in an interview and be like, I know we're going to work for a long time together.
That's awesome. That's great. So talk to us a little bit about some of your, innovation, especially when it comes to the way you use sauces and the way you're conveying Japanese cuisine.
So number one, soy sauce. Soy sauce. I bleed soy sauce. I put soy sauce on everything and anything. It makes it better. I guess kind of the base of breaking down soy sauce into 3 or 4 categories. I'd say 3 to start with is, you should know what tamari soy sauce is. your regular soy sauce, which has wheat, and then usukuchi soy sauce, which is more finishing soy sauce. I guess explaining kind of the difference. When there's no wheat, there's not a lot of umami. There's there's less umami in it. So tamari, for example, is more used as like a finishing gloss sauce in a lot of Japanese cooking. In my restaurant, when I wanted to keep things gluten-free, because we have the high demand, I started using soy. I started getting a base of tamari soy, adding just a tiny bit of water to cut that edge, a little bit of mirin, and dry shiitake. And I would throw it in there and turn like that gluten-free soy sauce, add more umami because I wanted more, just one more little something to it. So that's always kind of a fun way to try of like adding more flavor to the base if you do want to do gluten-free, because it has less compared to regular soy sauce. Regular soy sauce, love it. I think it's great on everything. It's the most utilized. I forgot. I don't know the word, but yeah, you can use it in different ways. Braises. One thing that I like about soy sauce that I learned in Japan that I think interests people over here is when you're doing soy sauce braises, I like to actually split the soy sauce in half when I put it in. So let's say it's a braised liquid of, I don't know, a quart, and I have a cup and a half of soy sauce that I need to put in this mixture, or 2 cups, let's say 2 cups of soy sauce that I need to put in. When I'm braising it, I would put half the soy sauce in first, so it turns into a more mellow, round flavor. And then at the very end, when I have like 20, 30 minutes left, that's when I add the rest of the soy sauce, the last half cup. So it has 2 dynamic flavor profiles using the same product. So you have that rounded out flavor and an edge, because sometimes I do like an edge flavor, but I don't like it to be too edgy, if that makes sense. And it's a complete preference thing. So that's why I personally like to kind of split it in 2 different ways when I make bases, teriyaki sauces, anything with soy sauce. And not just soy sauce, it works with all ingredients, fish sauce and everything else. So that's kind of a fun one. And then usukuchi sauce. It's more common kind of on the west coast of Japan, in Kyoto and Osaka, as a finishing salt for light soups. This one actually has high sodium, I believe. I think it's like 6 or 7%, which is a percent higher than regular soy sauce. So it's more specific, I'd say, for like clear broth soups. And then Kikkoman has a really cool product called double fermented that I like a lot. Number one, the cool part is the container, because soy sauce oxidation is a thing. And once you open soy sauce, you have it at room temp. Oh, do you have it there? Yes. What Jane has in her hand. Soy sauce oxidation is a problem that I've been dealing with in restaurants for a long time. If you have the square cube one, that's great. But if you're using the open bottle one from top, once you open that, it will start to change flavor really quick, especially if you don't keep it in the fridge. The double fermented, the container it has it in, I don't know what the right word is or to describe it, but it has like the squeeze function, so no air comes in. I don't know if you can help me out with the word there, but
yeah, I don't know what the word is either.
It's basically vacuum packed is kind of how we describe it. There's an inner package that won't let the air back in once you squeeze it.
Yeah, and it's really smart. I'm very happy that you guys started doing that, because it's probably one of my favorite things. Like, containers, that makes sense. But it's a great finishing soy sauce as well, because it has a lot of flavor, a lot of umami. I'd say umami balance wise, it has the most out of all the rest of the components. Sorry if I'm talking too much, but in my personal opinion, that's kind of how I feel. And it's nice when you want to do little finishes, or even in a dressing, you want one more depth into it. I would say double fermented is a really good one to add in there.
That's cool. You said one other thing that really blew me away too, is in grilling. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So grilling, the flavor of charred soy sauce is a thing. So I know izakayas and restaurants in Japan that actually have spray bottles with soy sauce in them. And when they're grilling meat, they'll hit the meat too, but more than anything, they'll hit the bottom, the charcoal of it to get that charred flavor to go up, to add one more component of flavor. So different ways of using soy sauce. When I do sautés with a little bit of soy sauce, simple things, I do a quick saute. I bring like the vegetables to the front side of the pan and crank the heat so the edge side, the other side, gets like beaming hot. And when it's smoking, that's when I hit my soy sauce and I toss it really quick. So you get that charred flavor mixed inside. So even, you're sauteing your soy sauce, but it has that one more depth of flavor.
That's really cool. I love that. And then tell me about wood chips.
Wood chips.
Yeah. You said you could soak them in soy sauce.
Oh, yeah.
Use them I thought that's genius.
Yeah. You can soak soy sauce, you can use in just so many different ways. Anyways, soak them in wood chips and then smoke with them, grill with them. I have this little like grill thing that I have at home that I just put on my range top, and I'll cook something and finish it off with the like soy sauce soaked wood chips, and it gives it kind of that nice charred flavor and smoky flavor. So it's a good cheat way to like do something fun.
And then probably the only part you've missed so far is as a marination. Do you do anything really unique, with your soy sauce marinations?
I use a basic. Well, I guess basic. There's a marinade called the Yuan marinade in Japanese cuisine. This is, I think it's in a book in like the 1600s. So maybe it's someone who worked for Kikkoman back in the day. But this person lived inland in the middle of like more in the inland of Japan. So he had to figure out how to bring soy sauce into his village or fish into his village because all the fish would go bad. So he started marinating it in 1:1:1 ratio of sake soy sauce marin. And that's the most, I'd say, classic Japanese marinade that everyone goes off of. Even my chef goes off of it. I go off of it. You can change it a little bit in senses, but a lot of times that's a marinade that I do.
Can you talk to us a little bit too, just to shift gears a little bit, about fish sauce? Because I know that there are people that are afraid to use it. More home cooks. Our members are pretty adept in doing it, but fish sauce. I mean, what's some of the things you would say about that? The do's and don'ts.
The do's and don'ts. I don't know if I feel comfortable saying don't, because I think I'm a big person that everyone should try what they want to do. Everyone has a different palate. Everyone likes different things. I have a friend who literally sips on fish sauce because she likes it a lot, So, fish sauce is just another product that has a lot of umami, different kind of salt balance. I don't know how to explain. That's kind of hard. I would say you can use it pretty much the same way as soy sauce. Even if you have recipes that have soy sauce, you can finish it with fish sauce if you like it. Vice versa, you can do ingredients like Thai cuisine that has fish sauce and replace that with soy sauce and play around with the flavor. You can do half, mix it up, have fun with it. I think another good example of Japanese cuisine is how they break up a lot of recipes. Tempura dipping sauce is a 5-1-1, which means 5 dashi, 1 soy sauce, 1 mirin. Udon soup in Tokyo is a 12-1-1. 12 dashi, 1 soy sauce, 1 mirin. So it's usually sweetness and soy sauce balanced out. And within that 1-1 balance, you can change your sweetness of 1, break it into 0.7 mirin, 0.3 honey. Same thing for the sodium part. You can change that 1 into 0.7 soy sauce and 0.3 fish sauce or salt or whatever you want. So it's kind of a perspective that I go off of a lot of times.
Very cool. All right. I want to go like full circle back to one thing. Okay. Your mother's chicken that you're selling 400 pounds a day out of your little box restaurant. Talk to us about that. Give us is there something unique about the breading, the sauce, the what?
So it's the marinade is we marinated in soy sauce, sake, mirin, ginger, black pepper. Add a little bit of what am I missing? I'm missing a few things. But anyways, we marinated that, and then we keep that marinade after we marinate it, and add flour and starch and oil, and kind of turn it into a slurry. More starch than anything, like I'd say 90% starch, 10% flour. And we take that out and we drop it in more starch. We drop that like slurry marinade into another bucket of starch, and we do 2 fries or 3 fries. We do our first fry at 280. I forgot the time frame. Let it rest. And then, so in a sense, it's the same idea as cooking the protein structure at a low temperature, sous vide in a sense. So it keeps it consistent when it's busy. And then we do a double fry or a triple fry. I think we're working on operations right now, so they're switching it up right now. But yeah, we do another fry to finish it off, get that crispy, crunchy, yummy going on.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So talk about, when you reopen, you talk about you reopening your bar, right? In June.
Yeah.
Is there food in the bar, or is it?
Well, we're open. The bar is open, but only to go right now.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly not sure if I'm going to open the inside, because we're doing so well doing the to go thing. Operationally, it's smooth. I mean, yeah, COVID's like, it's technically, on the end of things being over, but there is the fact that people are still getting, like it's not completely over. I don't want to like risk my staff on it yet. And I just feel like it's a good choice to stay the way. It's not broken, so why try to fix it?
That's awesome. So the product that's going out, how much of it is third-party delivery, pickup?
We do no third-party delivery.
You don't?
We don't do any Uber Eats, none of that.
Awesome.
You order by phone, you can come pick it up. But I do have a very prime location, so it works. I have 5 bars, 1 brewery, and an ice cream shop that always has a line on the same block that I'm on. And then the next block over has more bars. So I'm just in a very good spot that I'm lucky to have that kind of concept.
That's cool. You're obviously very smart to figure that out in the beginning, taking over that space. Yeah. But that's cool. So the rest of the neighborhood is doing well?
Yeah, rest of the neighborhood's doing well. I feel like every single day there's more people out, and it's incredible. And I just feel like with 2020, I talk to more people in the neighborhood in general, all the business owners, just what's going on with their lives, how's everyone doing. And I think with everything starting up again, we're all working together, and it's very different, the energy. I'm loving it. It feels great.
That's awesome.
It feels like a community right now, which is very nice.
That's awesome. We did have a question from the audience. Somebody wants to know about the flavor profile, the notes of soy. I mean, how you would describe that.
The notes of how do you describe that? It's very hard to explain because I just grew up with it. So soy sauce tastes like soy sauce, but I would say I wouldn't say molassesy, but almost in the same sense of a molassesy deepness, but it's not sweetness and it's saltiness.
That's cool. Jane, you can chime in here too if you like.
Yeah, I mean, that is a tough question because it does take on, our soy sauce has 300 different flavor components to it, basically, which is why it works so well with all types of cuisines, not just Asian cuisine. And my favorite example to use is especially our double fermented over ice cream. A couple drops over vanilla ice cream and it tastes like salted caramel. So it really changes based on what you're using it with.
I know when you've had that at our events, Jane, it's like crack. People are like, hey, how do I get this?
I know exactly. I got to do that. Ice cream with soy sauce.
And even our plant in Japan, at the end, you can go buy soy sauce ice cream.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Might be a new item on your menu coming up.
Soy sauce ice cream. Well, there's an ice cream shop right next to me, so I don't know if they'll be happy if I did ice cream, but
That's really cool. So basically, we're kind of wrapping up on your end, Shota. I know you've got to go. That might be a good thing to do before wrapping up. Talk about your time frame and what happened to you while you're in a hotel room right now, and the short notices you get to travel.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's right now right now I've been working on really building a restaurant business in sense. I will do what it takes to make revenue to make sure I can give good insurance, good pay, good that. And I think for a long time, I had the habit of staying in the restaurant with the team when it's going through a lot of things, not being able to look forward. And when time's late afterwards, 6 months from now, I'm not thinking about 6 months from now because I'm trying to get through the daily. I ended up, always making the same mistake. So this time, trying to be proactive and bring in more opportunities, strive on raising revenue. So, I got a call yesterday at 8 p.m. and finalized getting on a flight to come to LA. So I figured out I'm going to come to LA at 9 p.m. last night. Got on a flight at 6:30 and I'm here and I got to go work right after this phone call. So yeah, it's great. It's hectic. Social media influencer has been a big thing I've been learning about. I started a YouTube channel that about 2 months ago and I'm up to 2,000 subscribers and I'm trying to post daily, weekly videos. Kind of started working on production team and hustling, trying to get it. I'm just
That's great.
Trying to make it right now. That's it.
Well, thanks. And thanks for taking time to be with us today. I know we're not going to have you around for the end of the Q&A, but good luck on your project you're doing there. Good luck on Top Chef. It's been an exciting season. We don't always watch them. We watch these shows. We don't always watch it, true to the time frame. We'll be watching shows 3 weeks later, but this has been one, that's maybe some being home a little bit more too, but this is one we've stayed on top of. Yeah, it's probably because I don't want Jane to tell me what you're really doing, and so no, just
it really, I think, is just an incredible season because what everyone was going through when they came on board. I just wanted to cook with people. That's all I cared about more than competing, to be completely honest. So
that's cool. That is cool, and it seems like you're making some really good friends there. It seems like there's. And that may happen on every season, I would guess. There's people and you kind of people you want to hang out with. But you see yourself having some long-term friends from the group that you didn't know before that you can see hanging out with a lot more in the future.
I talk to everyone, literally everyone, almost every week.
That is cool.
What's up? How you doing? How's financials going? This is how much I'm making. And I try to be open with everything that I do and just share the information so we can all grow with each other.
That is so cool. That shows who you are. So again, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. Yeah, good luck on your project. And hopefully we'll see you sometime soon at one of our live events.
Yes, definitely.
We'll talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So Claire, you're up next. Let's talk a little bit here. And Claire is the content manager. Let me change our view here a little bit. Claire is the content team group manager from Datassential. And so she's here to talk to us, as we said earlier, a little bit about comfort in Asian foods. So Claire, you are on.
I wanted to confirm it's still the right screen, right?
Yes, you're on.
So we'll actually be covering a lot of things that we just chatted about. So what I'm going to share is some information from our new Report Pro program that Datassential is putting together. And that includes some reports that I created, which in this case, we're going to talk about Asian food and comfort food, and specifically sort of the intersection of those two cuisines, which so much of how can I describe soy sauce? That's part of that comfort food and how some of those indescribable things of how things make you feel. So we'll talk about comfort food trends. Anyone who's hopefully seen Datassential do some presentations has seen this before. This is our menu adoption cycle. We call it our life cycle for the phases of food. And this is the comfort food one. And it's a particularly interesting one in that I've been doing these for about 10 years now. And 10 years ago, when we showed the comfort food menu adoption cycle, it was just a pretty much what we see in Ubiquity and a handful of other items. Now, if you've not seen this before, the idea, I think, makes intuitive sense to this group is that things begin in inception, which is where we have our global influences and fine dining. Adoption is our trendy restaurants and fast casual chains, and then proliferation is our casual dining and quick service chains, and then ubiquity is everywhere. And what we see on the comfort food menu adoption cycle is that influence and the importance of global cuisine now showing up in inception and adoption. We recommend people play in adoption. So that's where lots of these, also the foods we were just talking about, like new wave fried chicken and all of that is falling to adoption. And as the marketplace changes, we're looking for new forms of comfort. So you wouldn't expect, if you were to just meet me, that my comfort food is Penang curry. But everyone's comfort food is different than necessarily what you might expect if you were to kind of guess based on their background, because our backgrounds are different than they once were. So this is showing from our menu trends database. I tried to pull like the top comfort foods, which is a really hard task because what is comfort to me differs from you. So I try to think really broadly. Is this something that somebody somewhere finds comforting? And what you find is the importance of, potato sandwiches, but also soups. And we were just talking about the importance of, soy sauce in flavoring soups and all of that layered flavor that goes into soups. And I think that's part of the comfort. It takes time to create soup, and that's part of why it's one of the top comfort foods found on menus. 68% of menus have at least one soup. In these reports, we have the stuff in the middle is the same as what we saw on the past slide, but what's interesting is the stuff on the right-hand side. That's what's growing on menus, and it's all the things that are increasing that could be interpreted as comfort food, and that's where we have all of our things like our loaded tots and fries, and those are nice because they're platforms for basically anything we want them to be. And what we did on the left-hand side here is we looked at all of the trends we see in our menu databases and thought about the themes that put them together. And we're going to talk a little bit about what I call future fried favorites. So you have your classic fried favorites of your traditional fried chicken, your country fried steak, all that fun stuff. But what we're looking at now more and more is the ways to take that to the next level. It's not all that different, as we were just talking about. The karaage that Shota does is, it's just fried chicken, but because you're using a chicken thigh, which is less common, and it's not bone in, and it's been marinated in this umami-rich mixture that he's created, that takes it to the next level and makes it a comfort food that's very approachable. He's selling tons of it because it's just fried chicken, but it has that twist to it. And there's a lot of those growing on menus. We also see katsu is growing on menus, and then some from some other cuisines are also showing some growth. Another one that relates perfectly well to Asian cuisine is, of course, the importance of every cuisine has their dumpling, pasta, or noodle that is a source of comfort food, and that theme we see through the data. So, of course, soups like ramen and pho are growing, but also some more kind of regional Italian cuisine, as well as other kind of hand-formed noodles and dumplings are growing. So that brings us into thinking about Asian cuisine. Same chart here, and again, we see that same theme show up. These are some of, you can imagine the flavors we've talked about being interwoven with all of these mega trends on the left-hand side. And one of those challenges in looking at Asian cuisine trends is, of course, that soy sauce tends to run through all of them and all of those other umami-rich flavors, but you don't call them out. It's that something that you can't describe. So you will see that tends to not be as commonly noted on the menu. And we are going to look through, you can see on the right-hand side, all of the different ways that you can layer those flavors. You can do, of course, garlic is common. Everyone knows garlic. We'd recommend if you wanted to do something a little different, you can do black garlic. That's approachable to consumers. Similarly, you can see chili flakes is growing, which doesn't really seem like the most interesting of flavors, but that's a way of describing some of those more regional type or cuisine-specific chili flakes. If you called it by its name, it would scare consumers away. But if you use its name and then add the chili flakes after it, it makes it more approachable. I'm going to highlight two partially because I happen to, one of these dishes, you can see it's from Chicago, Illinois, and I just ordered this 2 days ago. The Pajun pancake at Bryn Mawr Breakfast Club is one of the first times I noticed those Asian cuisine flavors showing up in breakfast. One of those things that we find in our Datassential data is that consumers are less adventurous when it comes to breakfast. And so it's taken a really long time for us to move beyond Mexican type influence at breakfast. And now we're starting to see that Asian influence coming to breakfast at non-Asian restaurants, as well as seeing Asian restaurants now starting to menu breakfast time frame. Usually it was just lunch and dinner, and now they're beginning to offer the breakfast day part. So the pork katsu, scallion biscuit, and bulldog gravy from this restaurant in Seattle is a really great example of that. All of those parts make sense at breakfast. It's like you're taking a country fried steak, a chicken fried steak, and topping it with gravy and serving it with biscuits. But instead of being all of the standard versions of that thing, now we're changing the protein, we're changing the breading to be the katsu style, and the scallion pancake element is actually a biscuit. So it's that type of feel that we're starting to see. Same idea with main dish noodle soups. It's sort of funny to like broadly group together things you see in data, but what you see is as you go by Asian cuisine in our data, each one has a soup that is growing, and it's usually one of the fastest growing things. And I think that's a great place to play right now. It's something that's hard for consumers to do at home, and it is very comforting. It's hard to create that layer of flavor, and so we are seeing those grow at restaurants because that's what we do at restaurants. Of course, we want to bring stuff that's hard for the consumer to make at home, and something that will appeal to them to either come out to our restaurant or something that motivates you to come pick it up and take it home. And these layered flavors with all of the elaborate garnishes are certainly a unique thing to a restaurant experience. And then we'll get into the actual dishes. I have another menu adoption cycle here because I know it's a nice visual way of looking at the different dishes. And I think this goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. So you see in ubiquity when we think Japanese food, it's sushi all the time, always. But there's so much more nuance to all of the different Asian cuisines, including Japanese. It's not just sushi. It's all of these other elements that we see earlier on. And in Inception, we see a lot from cuisines outside of maybe Korean, which is starting to become more well-known. It's starting to be things from regional Chinese, like mapo tofu. And you'll notice we wrote mapo on here, not just mapo tofu, because we're finding that as trends start to develop, they're not just going to be the version of it that we're most familiar with. So of course, tofu is what we're familiar with, but now we're seeing that same flavor profile be applied to beans or any number of different kind of carriers, if you will, in the same way that, it started with Nashville hot chicken, and now you can Nashville hot whatever you want. The same is true of all of these flavor profiles too. Same idea here, more trends, but what I think is kind of interesting is if you notice on the right-hand side, I did not mess up the data. I triple-checked this when I first created it. Caesar is one of the top growing terms at Asian restaurant menus, which is kind of like, what? So I looked at that. I thought it might maybe be driven by brunch, and it is in fact Asian cuisine restaurants offering Caesar salads or Asian Caesar salads kind of as a mashup, but it makes perfect sense when you think about it. You can replace the anchovy, and there's a lot in Asian cuisine that has that similar profile that makes sense. So when you look at the menu examples, it's calling out soy, it's calling out fish sauce, it's calling out miso to make that more unique homemade Caesar dressing. So that's a difference in what we're seeing growing beyond some of these really traditional dishes. It's mashups and having those little flavor twists. I like this one because it takes the plant-based thing to the next level. Of course, mapo tofu typically has pork, but what we're seeing more and more is that instead you're using eggplant or mushroom to make sure you keep it plant-based to stick with that theme. And then we did do a menu adoption cycle for the Asian sauces and flavors. And the reason we want to show this is what we also always talk about is that when you're thinking about creating a dish, we all kind of intuitively do it. We want to take something that's more inception or adoption level as far as the flavor and then mix it with a format that's more ubiquity, or we do the opposite. So if you're using something familiar like teriyaki, you can get a lot more wild with what you're going to do as the platform for that. But if you want to bring something with a little bit more, fish sauce isn't everything, but if you're calling out that flavor note, you probably want to make sure that your format is a little bit more approachable. And then I did highlight, we have one of these in the report for every cuisine that we dig into in our data. I wanted to bring attention to the Chinese one specifically because I think it's kind of interesting that most of the top growing dishes at Chinese restaurants are in fact not Chinese in origin. And I think that plays to what we're talking about. It's not just those mashups like a slider or, format that's just trending generally like a rice bowl. It's bringing things from other Asian countries into the Chinese restaurant space. So, you don't necessarily need to have ramen at a Chinese restaurant, or you don't need to have some of these other more Japanese influenced dishes, but that is what we're seeing. And pad thai is one of the top growing Asian dishes, not because Thai restaurants will always have pad thai, it's because other cuisine types are having it grow. And I did want to bring attention to everyone's favorite, the star that tastes like nothing but can taste like everything. Cauliflower is the last one on the list. And that's, of course, being used in, it's a nice platform for either a main dish. You could do kung pao cauliflower, or you can use it, of course, in a cauliflower wing with an Asian type sauce as the kind of what it's been mixed in. So that's a classic example. And then in the reports also, we bring in stuff from our flavor database, which is where we take all these terms and we test them with consumers to see what they think about it. And it sometimes just validates what we kind of know, which is when we look at the most loved cuisines in America, it's not, do you kind of like it? You have to select love on this scale. Chinese food is more loved than unspecified Asian food. What I think is a little surprising is that even a quarter of Americans say they love Japanese food. And that seems like a fairly high number. To me, when I think about, something that's as common as American food is only 63% saying they love it. So to think that something like Japanese food has 27%, that's clearly well-loved cuisine type. And then this chart is really hard to see, I admit. It's a little bit small, but what you end up finding is the bar charts show us the indexing for different demographic groups, and it shows the skews for what each demographic prefers. And what you find, unsurprisingly, is that Gen Z loves Instagram-worthy type things, your fluffy Japanese pancakes and those types of elements. But what you also see is that there's kind of the newer items, things that skew to more Korean or Thai, or even formats that we might be less familiar with, those skew younger, whereas some of your classic Chinese American cuisine dishes skew to the boomer demographic more. So there is, depending on who you're targeting or who the dish's target is, you would definitely want to think about different formats, which of course we know, but this gives some hints as to what those would be. Apparently Penang sauce is for Gen X, and I need to kind of reassess my demographics, I guess. And then we have our Asian dishes. We did pull in from scores. And I just wanted to highlight some of these. This is where we take our new items and limited time offers and test them with consumers. And it does confirm what we were talking about. The kind of classic one here is the Korean style gochujang fries. It's just French fries topped with, a spicy sweet mayo sauce. But because you mix that unknown flavor with mayo, it's approachable and it gets this nice score. The scores are 0 to 100, and 64 is actually a very strong score. So these are some interesting examples of how those mashups are happening and the different later stage trends.
That is great. I was writing some comments down. It's so funny to bring up at the end of your talk. And the first thing was Chinese slider, then Chinese when we were talking about a slider. But then you covered that. Okay. The next thing I wrote down cauliflower, and I just put an exclamation point. And then you covered that. It's like, when I saw cauliflower on that list, I'm like, oh, come on, really?
No, it's been everything. I happen to love it covered in Asian sauces, so I'm glad that's happening, but it is really just definitely the.
Yeah, and then the other thing you said is assessing the age group on that last one you had, because sadly, I'm a boomer. I'm looking at that food going, no, I want the top 2 boxes is what I'm looking for when I go out.
That's what we were saying. Everyone's tastes are different.
Yeah, very thorough, very good. Jane, you have any questions for Claire after looking at that and doing what you do every day?
No, it is very interesting to see the different trends and the crossover and the mashup. I think that's what we work a lot on with our customers is the mashup versus straight Asian cuisine. So it's good to see that it's on trend.
Yeah. And I see so much more of that, especially coming to the stage we're in right now, when everybody's getting back out, leaving the house, wanting to try new things. And we've seen it over the years, but certainly much more in this past year and a half or whatever. Just the speed to market that our corporate chef members are doing now is so amazing compared to when ICCA started 18 years ago. I mean, it was turtle to market. It took forever to get change and get something on the menu. And it's exciting now to see. I mean, not only is it accepted by consumers, but it's accepted by the management teams and everybody within the chains. And I think this next year or so is going to be really exciting to witness what's going to happen. So, with that, I mean, I really appreciate unfortunately, we're out of time. We have a video we'll show, which at the end of this, but before that, I just wanted to say thanks to all of you and thanks to Shota as well. We'll be back in touch with him. But also wanted to thank all of our sponsors and members that are on here today. Thanks to everyone, too, who's getting back to us on the upcoming event. So our first event is for ICCA. It's the 26th to the 29th of June in Providence. And now this place got busy. It's so fun. I mean, after a year of really, working on our webinars and, just kind of in a holding pattern on anything that's a physical meeting, it's so nice to be back into running meetings. That was the longest in my career to go without running a single meeting. And it's so nice. And here, it's like the light switch went on. I mean, this place is buzzing with activity again, and that's great. So we're really happy. So to all of you who are going to be involved in the event, anything we can do, let us know. This week, I've been traveling the last couple of weeks to set up all the other events that we have coming up for both GCIA and ICCA. So this week, we're getting into full gear of execution for that. So you'll see more information coming from us about the restaurants for dine around and where we're going to be going in Providence and some of the extra activities and a real detailed agenda. That'll all be coming here soon within the next week. But that being said, I just want to again say thanks to all of our sponsors and members that were with us today. Thanks to the two of you and to Shota for such a great presentation. And Mike, thank you for running all of our videos. So Mike, you're on for the final video. Thanks.